No, we're all very proud of it, and it's the quality has lasted throughout the years, and no, I don't think so. I think that...
For 11 seasons, Loretta Swit brought strength, humor, and heart to Major Margaret Houlihan, but there was one moment on MASH that nearly didn't happen at all. When the script landed in her hands, she pushed back, convinced the scene crossed a line she wasn't willing to accept for her character. Her refusal sparked conversations behind the scenes and nearly changed one of the show's most memorable moments. So, what was in that script that made Loretta Swit say no? Join us as we uncover the surprising story behind the MASH scene she initially refused to film and how it was ultimately resolved. The show that changed everything. Long before one unforgettable scene would leave Loretta Swit questioning where her character's story was headed, MASH had already become the kind of television series that rarely came along. It wasn't just another comedy, and it certainly wasn't just another war drama. Week after week, it found ways to make audiences laugh, only to remind them moments later of the heartbreaking reality behind the jokes. That balance became its greatest strength, but it also meant every decision carried extra weight. And as the series grew bigger than anyone expected, moments behind the scenes would become just as fascinating as the stories unfolding on screen. When MASH premiered on CBS in September 1972, few could have predicted what it would become. Inspired by the 1970 film, which itself was adapted from Richard Hooker's novel MASH, a novel about 3 Army doctors, the series transported viewers to the 4077th Mobile Army Surgical Hospital during the Korean War. Although the setting was thousands of miles from home and surrounded by conflict, the camp quickly felt familiar. It became a place where exhausted surgeons, nurses, medics, and support staff relied on humor to survive another impossible day. At the center of it all was Captain Benjamin "Hawkeye" Pierce, played by Alan Alda. Alongside him were Trapper John McIntyre, portrayed by Wayne Rogers, and an ensemble cast that soon became household names. McLean Stevenson brought warmth to Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake, while Larry Linville made Frank Burns both frustrating and strangely hilarious. Gary Berghoff gave Walter "Radar" O'Reilly an innocence that balanced the chaos around him. Jamie Farr turned Maxwell Klinger into one of television's most memorable characters, and William Christopher's Father Mulcahy quietly reminded everyone of the compassion that still existed in the middle of war. Then there was Loretta Swit. As Major Margaret Houlihan, she initially appeared to be the strict, by-the-book head nurse who often clashed with Hawkeye and Trapper. Early on, Margaret was known almost entirely by the nickname Hot Lips, a label that came with plenty of jokes and exaggerated storylines. But even during those early seasons, Swit believed there was far more to Margaret than audiences were being shown. She saw a dedicated Army officer, an exceptional nurse, and a woman trying to earn respect in an environment where she was constantly underestimated. That belief would eventually shape both the character and the series itself. What made MASH stand out wasn't simply its cast. It was the way the show refused to stay inside one genre. One minute, viewers were laughing at Hawkeye's latest prank or Klinger's newest attempt to earn a psychiatric discharge by wearing dresses around camp. The next, the operating room would fill with wounded soldiers, and the comedy would disappear almost instantly. Instead of feeling jarring, those shifts made the stories feel honest. Life in a war zone could be absurd one moment and devastating the next, and MASH never tried to hide that contradiction. That approach also allowed the writers to explore bigger ideas without losing their audience. While the series was set during the Korean War, it premiered while the Vietnam War was still unfolding. Rather than directly commenting on current events, the show used its historical setting to ask difficult questions about military life, leadership, sacrifice, and the cost of conflict. It challenged authority, poked fun at bureaucracy, and reminded viewers that the people behind the uniforms were just ordinary men and women trying to get through each day. As the years passed, the camp itself began to change. Familiar faces left and new ones arrived. At the end of the 3rd season, both Wayne Rogers and McLean Stevenson departed the series. Their exits brought in Mike Farrell as B.J. Honeycutt and Harry Morgan as Colonel Sherman Potter, whose steady leadership gave the 4077th a different kind of energy. Later, Larry Linville left, making way for David Ogden Stiers as the brilliant but aristocratic Charles Emerson Winchester III. When Gary Berghoff eventually stepped away, Jamie Farr's Klinger took over Radar's duties as company clerk, while G.W. Bailey joined the cast as Sergeant Luther Rizzo. Instead of weakening the show, those changes kept it evolving. Every new character brought a different perspective, and every departure subtly reshaped the relationships audiences had grown to love. The 40-70 sub-method never stopped feeling like home, even as its family continued to grow and change. The biggest transformation, however, happened behind the cameras. As original creative voices Larry Gelbart and Gene Reynolds moved on, Alan Alda became increasingly involved in shaping the direction of the series. The writing gradually shifted away from broad comedy toward more emotionally driven storytelling. By the later seasons, MASH was just as likely to leave audiences in tears as it was to make them laugh. That evolution wasn't accidental. It reflected both the changing cast and the changing priorities of the people creating the show. Characters became more layered, relationships more believable, and even Margaret Houlihan slowly stepped out from behind the Hot Lips nickname. She was no longer just the butt of jokes. She became one of the show's most complex and respected characters, thanks in no small part to Loretta Swit's determination to protect who Margaret really was. The series continued to dominate television throughout its remarkable 11-season run, even as some of the cast admitted they could feel the stories becoming harder to find. Alan Alda originally hoped to end the show after its 10th season, but CBS convinced the team to return for one final year. That decision led to Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen, a finale watched by more than 100 million people, making it the most watched scripted television episode in American history for decades. By then, MASH had become far more than a television show. It was a cultural phenomenon that proved comedy and heartbreak could exist in the same conversation. But that success didn't mean every creative decision was welcomed without debate. In fact, one script would soon test the very principles Loretta Swit had spent years fighting to preserve, forcing her to draw a line she never expected to draw. And what happened next nearly changed one of MASH's most talked about moments forever: the woman behind Margaret Houlihan. Long before millions of viewers knew her as Major Margaret Houlihan, Loretta Swit was simply a young woman from New Jersey, chasing a dream that, at the time, seemed anything but guaranteed. Years before she would become one of television's most recognizable faces, she was balancing ordinary jobs, studying whenever she could, and quietly building the skills that would one day allow her to fight just as passionately for her character off-screen as she did on it. Looking back, it's easy to see that the determination audiences admired in Margaret wasn't entirely fictional. It had been part of Loretta all along. Loretta Jane Swed was born on November 4, 1937, in Passaic, New Jersey, to Lester and Nellie Swed, both of whom came from Polish immigrant families. Her father worked as a salesman and upholsterer, and her upbringing was grounded in discipline, hard work, and strong family values. She grew up alongside her older brother Robert in a close-knit household where success wasn't handed to anyone. It had to be earned. Even as a child, Loretta found herself drawn to performing. She was active in school, joined a Girl Scout troop through her local church, and embraced every opportunity to participate in activities. At Pope Pius XII High School, she was far from someone who blended into the background. She was a cheerleader, co-captain of the girls' basketball team, and a regular participant in theatrical productions. Whether she was on the court or on stage, she had already developed the confidence and work ethic that would define much of her career. Still, acting wasn't a path that opened overnight. After graduating from Catherine Gibbs School in 1957, Loretta stepped into the working world, taking a series of clerical jobs to support herself while continuing to pursue her real passion. She worked as a stenographer, served as personal secretary to famed columnist Elsa Maxwell, spent time as secretary to Ghana's ambassador to the United Nations, and later worked for the American Rocket Society in New York City. For many people, those jobs might have marked the beginning of a lifelong office career. For Loretta, they were simply paying the bills while she prepared for something bigger. Outside working hours, she immersed herself in dance and acting. She trained with Gene Frankel, the respected drama teacher she would later describe as her acting coach and one of the most influential people in her career. Even after becoming famous, she regularly returned to his studio to encourage aspiring actors, never forgetting where she had started. She also studied at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, where she refined not only her acting, but her singing as well. Every class, every rehearsal, and every small performance became another step toward a goal that still seemed frustratingly far away. Her early theater career reflected that persistence. She made her off-Broadway debut in An Enemy of the People before earning a role in Jean Genet's The Balcony at the renowned Circle in the Square. Those productions didn't make her a household name, but they gave her valuable experience performing challenging material in front of demanding audiences. By the late 1960s, she was steadily building a reputation. She toured nationally in Any Wednesday, alongside Gardner McKay, before joining a Los Angeles production of The Odd Couple, sharing the stage with Don Rickles and Ernest Borgnine. Each production introduced her to new audiences and new opportunities, slowly expanding her career one performance at a time. Then Hollywood came calling. After arriving in Los Angeles in 1969, Loretta began landing guest appearances on some of television's biggest series. She appeared in Hawaii Five-0, which became her first television credit before adding roles in Mission Impossible, Mannix, Gunsmoke, and several other popular dramas. None of the appearances lasted long, but they accomplished something far more important. Casting directors began to recognize her talent, reliability, and ability to command the screen, even in relatively small roles. That momentum eventually led to the audition that would change her life forever. In 1972, Loretta was cast as Major Margaret Houlihan in the television adaptation of MASH, inheriting a role that Sally Kellerman had made famous in the original film. At first glance, Margaret seemed fairly straightforward. She was disciplined, intensely patriotic, and often at odds with Hawkeye and Trapper. Her secret relationship with Major Frank Burns became a running joke, while the nickname Hot Lips often overshadowed everything else about her character. But Loretta saw something others didn't. She believed Margaret deserved to be more than a punchline. Beneath the strict military exterior, she saw an accomplished nurse, a dedicated officer, and a woman whose professionalism was constantly overlooked. Rather than accepting the character exactly as she appeared on the page, Loretta quietly worked with writers and producers over the years to reveal those deeper layers. That gradual transformation became one of the defining character arcs of the entire series. As MASH matured, so did Margaret. She eventually married, experienced heartbreak through divorce, formed genuine friendships with the people she once clashed with, and developed a greater understanding of the Korean people living around the camp. The sharp edges that had once defined her softened without ever weakening her strength. Instead of losing her identity, Margaret became one of the show's most respected and emotionally complex characters. Loretta remained with MASH for all 11 seasons, making her one of only 4 cast members to stay from beginning to end. Alongside Alan Alda, Jamie Farr, and William Christopher, she became part of the show's foundation. In fact, she and Alda were the only actors to appear in both the pilot episode and the record-breaking finale, with Loretta appearing in all but 11 of the series' 256 episodes. Her performances earned her 2 Emmy Awards, but the recognition wasn't what mattered most to her. She often spoke fondly about episodes such as Hot Lips and Empty Arms, Margaret's Engagement, and The Nurses, stories that allowed audiences to see Margaret as a fully realized person, rather than simply a comedic foil. The relationships she built during those years also lasted long after filming ended. She remained especially close to Harry Morgan, who played Colonel Potter, and the two even became neighbors after the series wrapped. She also maintained a lifelong friendship with Alan Alda and his family, a bond that continued decades after the cameras stopped rolling. Although MASH became the defining role of her career, Loretta never stopped working. She starred in the original television movie that launched Cagney and Lacey, though contractual obligations prevented her from continuing in the role when the series was picked up. She also appeared in programs ranging from The Muppet Show and The Love Boat to holiday specials, documentaries, and game shows. Her love of animals eventually led her to host Those Incredible Animals, while her passion for the history behind MASH brought her to South Korea to host a documentary exploring the real Korean War. By then, Loretta had accomplished what few actors ever manage. She wasn't remembered simply because she played an iconic character. She was remembered because she helped shape that character into someone audiences genuinely respected. And that commitment to protecting Margaret Houlihan's dignity would soon be put to its biggest test when one particular script landed on her desk and asked her to compromise everything she had spent years building. Things fans did not know about MASH. Before MASH became one of the most celebrated television shows in history, plenty was happening behind the scenes that viewers never saw. The series looked effortless on screen, but off camera it was filled with surprising casting decisions, creative battles, unexpected twists, and stories that were every bit as memorable as the episodes themselves. Some of those moments completely changed the direction of the show, while others remained little-known secrets for decades. Together, they revealed just how different MASH might have been if even a few decisions had gone another way. One detail many fans don't realize is that several members of the cast had real military experience long before stepping onto the set. Alan Alda spent 6 months in the Army Reserve in Korea, giving him first-hand insight into military life. Jamie Farr served in the U.S. Army and was stationed in Japan before entertaining troops during a USO tour through Korea at the request of legendary comedian Red Skelton. Wayne Rogers also served in the U.S. Navy as a ship navigator, while Mike Farrell spent time in the U.S. Marine Corps. Although MASH wasn't a documentary, those real-life experiences helped bring an added sense of authenticity to the series. The cast audiences eventually fell in love with almost looked very different. McLean Stevenson originally auditioned to play Hawkeye Pierce before producers decided he was better suited for the lovable but often overwhelmed Lieutenant Colonel Henry Blake. At the same time, comedian Robert Klein was offered the role of Trapper John McIntyre, but turned it down. Looking back, it's hard to imagine anyone other than Alan Alda and Wayne Rogers bringing those characters to life. Yet history could have taken a completely different path. Even getting the series off the ground happened faster than many people would expect. Screenwriter Larry Gelbart had grown tired of Hollywood and moved to London when he was asked to adapt Robert Altman's hit film for television. Despite his hesitation, he accepted the challenge and wrote the pilot episode in just 2 days, earning $25,000 for the script. That whirlwind effort laid the foundation for a show that would ultimately run for 11 seasons. One of the biggest surprises involves Maxwell Klinger. Today, Jamie Farr's cross-dressing corporal is one of the most recognizable characters in television history, but he was never meant to stick around. Klinger was originally written for a single episode, and the character was initially conceived as a gay soldier. That idea quickly evolved into someone who wore women's clothing simply to convince the Army he was mentally unfit for service and deserved a Section 8 discharge. The new direction proved so popular that Klinger became one of the heart and soul characters of the series. Not every creative decision came from the people making the show. The famous laugh track, something many viewers associated with sitcoms of the era, was never something the producers wanted. Larry Gelbart and executive producer Gene Reynolds believed canned laughter clashed with the emotional balance of MASH, but CBS insisted audiences expected it in a half-hour comedy. The compromise was simple but effective. The laugh track would never be used during operating room scenes. As the years passed, it became quieter and less noticeable, and when the series aired on the BBC in the United Kingdom, the laugh track was removed entirely. The network also pushed back on storylines it considered too controversial. One proposed episode showed soldiers deliberately standing outside in freezing temperatures so they would become sick enough to be sent home. The tactic had reportedly been used during the Korean War, but CBS considered the story too unpatriotic and refused to approve it. Behind the scenes, the writers occasionally found themselves battling a different challenge altogether. After growing frustrated with actors constantly suggesting changes to scripts, writer Ken Levine and his colleagues decided to send a message of their own. They wrote scenes requiring everyone to wear heavy winter parkas while filming outdoors on the Malibu ranch during temperatures approaching 100 degrees. The actors got the message, and according to Levine, the endless script notes quickly became much less frequent. Wayne Rogers' departure after the 3rd season also came with an unexpected twist. Producers initially threatened legal action when he decided to leave, believing he was breaking his contract. The problem was, there wasn't one. Rogers had never actually signed the agreement because he objected to its outdated morals clause. Without a signed contract, there was little the studio could do, allowing him to walk away from one of television's biggest shows. His exit coincided with one of the boldest creative decisions in television history. When McLean Stevenson also decided to leave, Gelbart and Reynolds chose not to give Henry Blake a happy farewell. Instead, they decided his plane would be shot down after leaving Korea. To preserve the shock, they distributed scripts with the final page removed. Only after filming every other scene did they hand each cast member the missing page, revealing that Radar would enter the operating room to announce Henry's death. The cast's stunned reactions were genuine, and the heartbreaking scene was filmed in just 2 takes. The ending sparked more than 1,000 angry letters from viewers, and reports later claimed CBS disliked the decision so much that the network removed the scene from at least 1 repeat broadcast. As the show continued for over a decade, the writers gradually ran out of names for one-time patients. Instead of inventing new ones, they quietly borrowed names from professional baseball rosters, particularly the California Angels and Los Angeles Dodgers. Some names even came from people the writers knew personally, including one of Ken Levine's former girlfriends. Ironically, MASH eventually spent 11 years telling the story of a war that lasted just over 3 years. Yet audiences never seemed to lose interest. Much of that was thanks to Alan Alda, whose influence grew dramatically as the series progressed. Beyond starring as Hawkeye, he co-wrote 13 episodes and directed 31, including the legendary finale. Along the way, he became the first person ever to win Emmy Awards for acting, writing, and directing on the same television series. The show also became a launching pad for countless future stars. Long before becoming household names, actors including Patrick Swayze, John Ritter, Lawrence Fishburne, Ron Howard, Leslie Nielsen, Shelley Long, Rita Wilson, Pat Morita, Ed Begley Jr., George Wendt, Blythe Danner, Terry Garr, and Andrew Dice Clay all made appearances at the 4077th. Then came the ending that made television history. On February 28, 1983, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen attracted an astonishing audience, with roughly 77% of all Americans watching television that night tuned into the finale. More than 121 million people watched, making it the most watched scripted television episode in American history, a record that still stands. The show's popularity also transformed advertising. A 30-second commercial that cost around $30,000 when the series began eventually sold for approximately $450,000 during the finale. Even after the original series ended, its story continued through 3 spin-offs. Trapper John, M.D., followed Trapper's later medical career. After MASH reunited Colonel Potter, Klinger, and Father Mulcahy at a veterans hospital. And Walter attempted to continue Radar's story after he became a police officer. Only Trapper John, M.D., enjoyed long-term success. And one final piece of MASH history almost disappeared forever. In the penultimate episode, the characters buried a time capsule beneath the Fox Ranch set. Just 2 months later, the property was sold, and construction workers accidentally uncovered it almost immediately. One worker contacted Alan Alda to ask what should be done with the capsule. Alda simply told him to keep it. According to Alda, the worker didn't seem particularly impressed, but for devoted fans, it was one more remarkable chapter in the story of a television series that continues to surprise people decades after its final goodbye. The Mass HH script that forced Loretta Swit to speak up. There was a time when Loretta Swit seriously considered walking away from MASH. It wasn't because of long hours, contract disputes, or disagreements with her co-stars. It was because she believed the woman she had worked so hard to bring to life was in danger of becoming little more than a joke. Her determination to protect Margaret Houlihan had already begun with one early script that left the cast and writers rethinking an entire storyline. That moment became the first sign that Loretta wasn't afraid to challenge the creative direction of the show, and years later, it would lead to a much bigger confrontation that permanently changed Margaret's future. One of the earliest examples came during Season 1 with the episode Edwina. On paper, the story centered on a nurse whom none of the men wanted to date because she was supposedly unattractive. The script relied heavily on jokes at her expense, asking the audience to laugh at her appearance rather than the situation itself. Years later, co-creator Larry Gelbart confirmed that the original version of the script really was written that way. Looking back, he admitted the writers realized they had made a mistake. Instead of portraying Edwina as someone everyone avoided because of her looks, they rewrote the episode so the character became known for being accident-prone. The comedy shifted away from mocking her appearance and focused instead on the chaos that seemed to follow her everywhere she went. That change may seem small today, but it reflected a much larger issue that Loretta Swit had already begun noticing. As the actress behind Major Margaret Houlihan, she became increasingly uncomfortable whenever female characters were reduced to punchlines or treated as little more than objects for jokes. She believed the women serving at the 4077th deserved the same depth and respect as everyone else, and she wasn't afraid to make that opinion known behind the scenes. Her biggest battle came several seasons later. By the time MASH reached its 4th and 5th seasons, Swit felt Margaret had become trapped in a cycle she no longer wanted to play. Too often, the character was remembered as Frank Burns' secret lover or as the target of embarrassing jokes that echoed the infamous shower scene from the original 1970 film. Swit believed Margaret was far more than that. She was an accomplished Army officer, an exceptional head nurse, and one of the most capable people in the camp. According to Swit, she finally reached her limit. She made it clear to the producers that unless Margaret was allowed to grow beyond being a caricature and a sexual punchline, she was prepared to leave the series altogether. This time, the producers listened. Rather than resisting her concerns, they embraced them. Margaret's affair with Frank Burns came to an end. Her storylines became more personal and emotionally layered, and audiences gradually watched her transform into one of the show's most respected characters. She remained disciplined and strong, but she also became vulnerable, compassionate, and deeply human. Looking back, it's hard to imagine MASH without that evolution. What began with concerns over an early script like Edwina eventually grew into a fight that reshaped one of television's most memorable female characters. In the end, Loretta Swit's willingness to stand her ground didn't just protect Margaret Houlihan, it helped make her one of the lasting reasons MASH is still celebrated decades later. What MASH episode is your favorite till this very day? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.